Your knowledge of contract language is imperative.
You must know what a violation looks like if you wish to be active in its cessation.
It is important to understand that being active and knowledgeable affects your overall bargaining strength.
Together with the cause of more militant NALC.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball, recording from the beautiful city of Roseville, Michigan, currently at grievance number 567. All right, so today we were supposed to have an interview that ended up falling through, but it will still probably occur anyway, so that's completely fine. It doesn't always work out, but we're going to have an episode later this week, hopefully this week. If not, it'll be beginning of next week on restricted sick leave and deems desirable. That one's going to be a little bit longer. This one's going to be shorter. I got 3 topics I would like to talk about that I think are particularly relevant, and they're not necessarily related to each other, other than the fact that they're relevant in December. So, without further ado, we're going to get straight into the business. Something I like to do. Now, 731. I don't know if it's 731 everywhere, but 731 is a type of clock ring. It has been a menace over here at Roseville, Michigan, because oftentimes when someone is doing auxiliary assistance off of someone else's route, they end up telling the carrier to clock to 731, which is inappropriate because it doesn't count toward that route. They need to be clocking to that route, whether loading up, office time, or delivering, street time. And that's regardless if there's any mail to deliver. That still counts with packages. 731 is the collection thing over here. I don't know if the codes are the same everywhere, but I think they are, or they might vary very little. But so data integrity is important all year. It's important all year. But one of the things I'd like to point out when it comes to this 731 issue, we have a tendency to lose this grievance more often than not when the 731 punch is during the month of the December exclusionary period. And this is because the December exclusionary period has not been calculated in any of our route adjustments in the past. I don't like this because it doesn't mean it won't be in the future. But regardless, they say that you can't articulate the harm if you can't lose any data integrity in terms of like how it affects your route. So keep that in mind if you're filing for this grievance during the month of December, that you're going to have to articulate the harm a little bit harder than usual. And you might not be successful at that either. Because like I said, typically the argument wins that, oh, well, this route won't be used for your route adjustments. So, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And we need to learn how to work within the system that we have. Doesn't mean don't file the grievance. Absolutely file the grievance. The NALC needs a little bit more balls, a little bit more grit. And we're going to actually deliver it to them this upcoming 2026. Let's get this done, guys. With education comes the ability to provide that extra grit that we really need here. And I look forward to everything you individuals do in the future. Now, don't forget, if you'd like to ask me about these grievances, I'd be more than willing to help you through your own. And I might do another segment coming up where you could maybe send me your contention so we could talk about what I would change. Everyone's different. Nobody does them perfect. So I think that sounds like a pretty good idea. I've been asked about it a few times. Let me know if you guys like that idea. By the way, I'd really like to see a little bit more ratings. If you want to give me, drop me a rating. I've been doing pretty good so far. If you're out there and you appreciate the episodes, make sure to drop me a rating of 5 out of 5 on Spotify or Apple. Moving on. 7.2. This is crossing crafts. This becomes very abundant during the month of December. And with its abundance, should be an abundance of grievances, because a lot of branches, they don't like to file this grievance. And I think that's inappropriate. And they say, oh, well, who cares? They're getting hours anyway. That's stupid. That is not how we protect our brothers and sisters in the APWU. And that is not how we protect our NELC counterparts. Well, our NELC brothers and sisters. And by the way, this is always an issue. I made a chart with this before where I had 5 different types of grievances that were being exhausted more through this issue. So this is really stupid stance to take. Again, the NELC needs more balls. I filed a grievance for staffing for the APWU because of this issue. And I demonstrated that, this issue caused or made worse a lot of other violations, such as improper mandation. Those CCAs could have been used for assistance. Elm 43232, those CCAs that were called in early to do packages, they ended up working beyond 11 and a half. This could have been used to make less worse when it comes to Article 8.5F limitations, Article 8.5G limitations, and last but certainly not least, there is a lot of offices not given enough steward time. And how often are those same offices working their CCAs in the clerk craft? This is something that needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, when I sent this grievance up, like I said, the NLC, they don't have balls. We need to start being more of a hammer. We're just shitty enforcers right now. We just need a different leadership, because we need the balls to say, yeah, the APWU is not being staffed correctly, so that's creating violations on the NELC side. That is within our scope, But, the moral of the story is you can at least file for 7.2, regardless of the staffing issue. And that leads me to the fact that this should be a daily violation. If you're a steward or if you're a carrier, ask for a daily violation. If you're a steward, file a daily violation. And this is twofold, because you should take a little calendar, write down every name you see every time there's crossing crafts. Come in 30 minutes early, stewards. I come in 4 hours early. In fact, today it worked out for me because I'm on the ODL. We start at 8 a.m. And they said, you know what? Monday, Tuesday, you're going to come in 6 a.m. Well, I'm already here at 4 a.m. So it doesn't matter to me. So, anyway, come in a little bit early. Keep an eye on the workroom floor. You have that right, stewards. As long as you tell them, hey, I'm coming in 30 minutes early for the month of December because I'm noticing a trend, they have to let you in. Give them a heads up. They have to let you in. It's part of your rights. And write down on the calendar every day you see it crossing crafts. And this is how it becomes twofold, because oftentimes they're not going to actually punch these CCAs over. If you haven't noticed already, your scanners do not allow you to change to the clerk craft. Well, that's a problem. It needs to be addressed through a 1260. And then whoever edits the clock rings needs to change that. Well, they're not doing that, especially during the month of December. Come on. They're hardly having time to do anything else, even though they're sitting on their ass most of the day. So, it becomes a twofold issue, because ultimately, that's the controlling document, the clock rings. So you're going to also have to write down every day you see it happening, file a second grievance for clock ring falsification. And, it may not be falsification in the literal sense. There might not be putting something in that is misleading, but at least talk about clock ring integrity. And if anyone needs a template for this, feel free to reach out to me, because this is one we got to fight. We got to fight it, because when you let the APWU, who is understaffed, fail for so long, all you're doing is creating issues in your own craft, because they are related. use our guys to not actually have to hire anybody in the clerks. And that's ridiculous. I think that we should not be participatory in that. Not that it's our choice currently, because we have to do what we're told and file a grievance later. But we should at least be doing our due diligence and filing a grievance every day it occurs, until the point where we can escalate it to monetary. Then we can escalate that again and again and again till we reach that golden price where management finally stops violating. Until then, the game is on. We need to start fighting this. If you're not fighting it already, please pick up the boxing gloves and get in the ring, please. We need you out there. And while we're at it, we'll do our final topic, and that is working in the dark. So I've mentioned this before, but a lot of this in the future is going to be repetition because when it is relevant to the time, not everyone's going to listen to every episode. Not everyone's going to listen to, not everyone's going to listen to them at the right time either. And remember, because it's all about retention. Repetition helps with retention, because the first time you go to a class, the first time you listen to an episode, you're not going to retain everything about it. So that's why this is going to be a game of repetition, because there's only so much to talk about at the end of the day. And every time I mention something, I'll probably mention something new about it too. But working in the dark. We take an unusual stance here at Roseville, Michigan. We are lost in time, because there was a time way back when maybe the 90s, I wasn't here, but this is what I'm told, maybe the 90s, where we really had a stance against working in the dark in terms of, protecting our carriers safety-wise. And, of course, we still sort of observe that stance, but we're less aggressive on it because of the fact that we probably lost our ass on a whole bunch of cases. Not Roseville, Michigan, but just in general. So we've taken a less aggressive stance, especially with the whole profit bullshit with the Postal Service. Boo-hoo, we're doing so bad, so we need as much stuff as we can. Who cares? Safety is important above all else. But for those of you out there who are working in the dark, first of all, be mindful of those headlamps that they're giving you. What is the first thing that they talk about when you get hurt? You know it. What kind of shoes are you wearing? Why is it your fault? Let me go take pictures so I can figure out why the carrier did something wrong. Let me do the interview so I can figure out why the carrier did something wrong. Well, guess what? That headlamp is not part of your uniform. It's not an approved uniform piece, and it's not been proven safety-wise. So, at the end of the day, one of the stances that Roseville takes, which is unusual, is that it's not appropriate to be wearing those headlamps. And in essence, it's not appropriate to work in the dark necessarily, because there's no way to go around that. And if you don't use the headlamp, it'll take forever. Well, let them take it forever if you feel safe out there. But if you don't feel safe, don't wear the headlamp. And also, don't do it. But there's a formula in which you need to make sure that you got your own ass covered, especially in light of the grievances we've lost in the past. So, that being said, I'm going to go step by step and tell you what the procedure is, all right? And this is written by Pat Carroll. And maybe Pat Carroll didn't write it originally. Maybe it's his take on what was available at the time. This is old. This is from 1995, something like that. So, yeah, it's a very old article, and it still persists to be true today. So, step number 1, complete Form 3996 in the morning and request field assistance. What that means is you're going to write on that form. You're going to say, hey, the time is getting dark. You told me I'm going to be out 10 hours. Sunlight only lasts so long in this season. So I'm going to be working in the darkness, and I'm going to need more time for this. So estimate your best estimate based on how long it would take. Or if you feel unsafe completely, because maybe you got a route with a lot of dogs that are loose, or whatever the case may be. Maybe your cement is all fucked up. Put in your 96 that it's unsafe to carry in the dark, and you're going to have to do that. Number 2, inform your supervisor before you leave the office that your workload will dictate that you will not be able to finish your assignment before dark. That's just part of the 3996 process. Of course, you got to have that conversation with your supervisor. As shitty as it sounds, you got to talk to the guy because it's just part of the process. Number 3, inform your supervisor that it is unsafe for you to be delivering in the dark. This, again, safety is dependent on the individual. If you feel safe delivering in the dark, this should be tailored toward, by the way, it's going to take such and such amount of time extra as my estimate because I'll be carrying in the dark. And if you feel unsafe carrying in the dark because of the way your route is, you know your route better than anyone else. Well, then you got to tell them, once darkness hits, I'm going to evaluate whether or not it's safe, but typically it's been unsafe lately, so keep that in mind. All right, number 4. If your supervisor does not wish to cooperate with you on this safety-related issue, request to see your steward. I love this idea. As you may already know, if you're a listener to this podcast, that they have to give it to you within your tour if you request to see your steward. This is doing 2 things to meet the same end. And that's what I love about, being a steward. You got to have a lot of thinking outside the box, 2 ways to meet the same end. When you request to see your steward as a result of a unhealthy conversation about your safety, you're doing 2 things. First, you're making the steward aware of your issue, which is what it's supposed to do. Second, you are making the supervisor unlikely to argue with you in the future. It may take a million times, but eventually they'll see this as a time-wasting practice because every single time they're going to have to provide 2 people for 15 minutes talking about an issue. Sometime they're going to say, okay, I don't really want to argue with this guy because he's going to request to see his steward. And at the end of the day, he's always right anyway. So eventually, those 2 things that you're using to meet the same end is going to make it faster to meet that end. So, if you didn't retain that, if your supervisor does not wish to cooperate with you on this safety-related issue, request to see your steward. Moving on. Number 5, if the situation cannot be resolved, even after intervention from your steward, call your supervisor in the afternoon and inform him or her that your situation has not changed and you will not be able to finish before darkness sets in. Again, request field assistance. If given an order to finish your route, follow the order until you feel safe an unsafe condition exists. Until you feel an unsafe condition exists. Anyway, so as this says, I don't think it'll be resolved, but from just talking to your steward, maybe over time. But if you are told that you have to continue anyway and do the best you can or deliver in the dark, well, then you have the reporting requirement to your supervisor. I would not call them. I would use text messaging. And again, if they tell you something stupid like get all the mail delivered and within 8 or within before darkness sets, those are conflicting. I would ask for clear instructions. Say that those are unclear instructions. Can you give me clear instructions? And typically they don't answer texts anyway, but yeah, do what you're instructed to do until a safety problem occurs. If you feel absolutely unsafe, don't deliver. But until then, you have to at least attempt. So ask for instructions. Number 6, after it becomes dark, again, contact your supervisor and inform them it is unsafe to continue delivery. Don't forget to collect reimbursement for money spent on phone calls. Now, typically this wouldn't happen because we don't have a lot of payphones around, but if you're in a big city, maybe. You're entitled to it. But again, just text them. It's going to be a lot easier and free. And if you're, once again, given instructions to finish your assignment, make an attempt. Follow the instruction. If condition is unsafe and you are the one to make that determination, don't forget that. That's you. Return to the office, regardless of instructions. Make sure you take a picture of the conditions. If it's truly dark, take a picture. Show them that there's no lights around, and if there's dogs barking, record video to show that, there was a dog out. But, in general, you are the one who makes the determination whether or not you are safe. So you're going to have to answer for that. So if there's any documentation to take, make sure to take it. And additionally, like I said before, make sure you text your supervisor. You can call if you feel like you want to. That phone is only used in the performance of your duties if you want it to be. So keep that in mind too. But number 7, inform your supervisor once you return to the office, if he or she is still even in the building, that you have curtailed delivery because of an unsafe condition of working in the dark. Typically, you would have to also, I would advise you at least, to fill out a 1767, just to prove that you felt it was unsafe. Just write down the reason why you thought delivering in the dark was unsafe. And then also fill out a 1571. Please help me here. This is something that I could never get anyone to fill out. Please, 1571, man. It is the most important document when it comes to curtailing mail. We're going to need it. We need that document. Please fill out a PS form 1571. All right, now that we're past that 1571. If you receive any discipline for your actions, contact your steward and grieve the situation. That's number 8. Remember to document all conversations with your supervisor. That goes along with what I said. Calling, you can't document that. What do you got to do? Write a statement? And then it's going to be he said, she says at the end of the day. And you know how much integrity management exhibits. They are the utmost observers of honesty and integrity. And I got a bridge to sell you because it's opposite day anyway. But, if you receive any discipline, that one's kind of self-explanatory. I would really hope you're already observing that practice, that if you receive discipline, you got to talk to a steward because you only got 14 days to grieve it anyway. But, it's important that we document all conversations with your supervisor. If you're texting them, take a picture of the text. And what I do is I'll send the text, click on the sent box, and then I would take a picture of that, and it would document what time it was sent. It might not be, all-encompassing, all-controlling document to show exactly what time, but that's going to be my statement. I'm going to say, hey, there's no better way to do this, and I did what I could. I sent the message, I opened the sent box, I took a picture of it immediately. That was the timestamp in which I sent it. That way, if your message somehow deletes or gets deleted, you have some sort of documentation for what time you sent and what you said. And I also take pictures of all the conversations sent back, especially if I feel like it's inappropriate or if I feel like there's an issue. But I'm going to end this with what he says at the end, and it may not be true nowadays, but it was true at the time when he wrote this. We have not lost a case regarding this issue when the aforementioned guidelines have been followed. Back pay and overtime have been recovered for all lost wages. You deserve and have the right to stay safe. Both the union and management have the responsibility to provide a safe working environment under the provisions of Article 14 of the National Agreement, and our customers deserve quality and timely mail delivery. And this goes hand in hand. There's a lot of other solutions management could be using to avoid this darkness issue, but they're not. And as you already know, they have the obligation to do everything they can to get the mail delivered and to avoid any future grievances. So what they really should be doing here is getting people in earlier. I don't know why they don't. I assume it's to be petty and to be assholes sometimes, but perfect example today. ODL's in here, 6 a.m. We're going to do 12-hour days. They're trying to work us in a stupid 6 p.m. window, which is why they have us in early. But they should do this shit when it's time for darkness to be here early, because it's really the best solution. To strap on the stupid light that's not even proven to be good and then get her injured, and you could lose your injury claim because you were wearing a safety device that really wasn't approved to be used in the darkness by your management or by the uniform code. I think that's not a good idea. Obviously, you need to attempt the delivery. And I did this when I was the CCA. I made them annoyed. Attempt the delivery. Inform them that you're bringing it back because it's too dark and unsafe. And they sent me out like 4 times one day. And ever since then, they never did it again. But yeah, I would go. They would say, "Oh, your instructions to deliver?" I said, "Okay." And then I drove out. And then I drove back and I said, "Hey, it's unsafe, too dark." "Well, I gave you the instruction to deliver." Then I drove out. I came back. And I said, "It's unsafe." I did that 4 times and I wasted their time. That's, again, doing 2 things to meet the same end. I'm telling them exactly what's going on. They're dumb enough to keep sending me out. Well, that's just, I guess they're paying me for an hour to drive back and forth over and over again until they realize that I'm not going to do it. But, at the end of the day, that's what you got to do if you want to stay safe and you want to stand on your convictions. And if you get discipline from it, maybe you'll lose it, maybe you'll win it. But if you follow these steps, you should win it. Absolutely. So these are the 8 steps you need to do when it comes to being safe, working in the dark. And with that, I'm going to make it the end of the episode. Don't forget, Debbie Dixon, we need questions, Region 2. Debbie Dixon's running for MBA, and I want some questions. I want questions from Region 2, but I also want questions from everybody. You can ask her anything. Hard ones, easy ones, it doesn't matter. And she's going to have to answer everything, and she's already pledged to do so. So we'll be doing that until Christmas. And from then on, at some point we're going to record, and the episode will be released, most likely, beginning of January. And I'm not going to have as many episodes in December, but this week is going to be jam-packed because I am going to have restricted sick leave. I might have my interview from some folks that we might have a roundtable about some decisions that were given. And if they decide not to, who knows? We might not, but there might be 3 episodes again this week. But either way, hopefully you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
Out to the Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievous Genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Brothers and sisters, this guy is good, man. He's fucking good.
And my boy Joshua, he killed it. Man, he's lockstep right now. He's killing it.
You would think this guy has been around for 30 fucking years. That's how good he is.